Hey everyone, my name's Calvin, and in this tutorial video I'm going to show you how to paint this watercolor tropical beach scene. And I'm going to use this watercolor for Procreate kit that has the textures and brushes, and I'm going to post a link to that in the description. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I have a new blank watercolor texture document. And let's do a quick sketch here. It's going to be a square scene basically, like this. And I'll do the sun here, and I'll do some kind of tropical leaves sort of coming in on the edges. So I'm happy with this sketch, and I'll start with the sky. So I'll go to a layer below the sketch, and let's grab a nice sky blue color, and I'll use the rough mop. And I wanted to have some sunset colors, so I'll use the selection tool and go in like this, and we'll throw in some, maybe like an orange, a yellow actually. Okay, yellow, and then finally here I'll add some orange or some red, and I'll just sort of scroll around on this slider until I find a good color, and I'll blend it with the blender brush, the water blender here. And I want to lighten the bottom of the sky, just above the mountain there. So feather that out, hue, saturation, and brightness. And the colors get a little bit saturated, so I'll desaturate it. Okay, and then maybe overall I'll increase the saturation. Okay, that looks pretty good. It does lack a little bit of white, so I'll continue blending it, but I'm going to pull some white in from the sides, like this. Okay, that looks much better. More variation. If you notice your sort of wash texture is looking too uniform or flat, you need to add some white in there, add some dark shadows, and sort of increase the dynamic range of the scene, the difference between the lights and the darks. So now I'm going to move on to the mountain. So I'll make a new layer, and I'll choose a kind of a distant blue color. Okay, I want to lighten it, so I'll go to my hue, saturation, and brightness here. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll use the same color. I guess it's still pretty dark, and I'm just going to add some sort of shadows here. And I'm just starting off thin, and then kind of scrubbing a little bit harder, just so I get this sort of shadowy effect. And I'll grab my blender tool, medium size. And it's still a little bit too sharp on the sky. I want it to be sort of faded, but let's just get some color down and do the whole scene, and then at the very end I'll sort of blend everything and then hide the sketch layer. Now I want to do the beach, so what I'll do, let's blend this real quick, but what I'll do is I'll just select the water and then turn it to a sort of sandy color. I feel like that's easier than painting on top of this blue, because the sandy color is kind of yellowish, and when you stack yellowish on blue, you're going to create mud sometimes. So I'm just going to cheat and do a selection like this, and I'll feather it up a pretty fair amount like that. I'll grab my hue, saturation, and brightness. I'll shift this kind of yellowish here like that. Increase the brightness and lower the saturation. And that's kind of how you make a good sandy color. It's like a desaturated orange. So I'm just about done with the background scene here. I just want to change this little land here. So I'll select it and just add some interesting variation. And now I'm going to flatten the whole scene and just sort of blur some of these edges. So let's just merge everything down. I'll use my water blender, and since everything's on the same layer, I can easily just mix it together. And I'll just break up some of these edges. And I'm gonna sort of blend this with the sky a bit so it looks like it's sort of fading up into the sunset. What I like about watercolor is it has this abstract thing that leaves so much to your imagination. And I'll add some waves really quickly. So we'll make a layer on top. I'll choose pure white, and then I'm going to choose the Snow Flare stippling brush. And this is a weird brush, but it actually does a really good job for making sort of waves. And that's how you create some depth here. So as I'm getting farther away, I'm doing them smaller and shorter. And up close to the beach here, they can be huge. And I'll shrink that so I can get a little more range with the pressure curve. And I'll just do these little hard waves, hard breaks out there. And as long as they're small, they'll look really far away. Now I'm going to add some sort of leaves in the foreground here. So let's merge those two so the waves and the background scene is all together. I'll make a new layer on top, and I think I'll just do some palm frond here and then like a leaf. So let's choose a palm frond color. So I'll use the abstract round, pretty small like that. So we'll just do sort of the stem of the palm leaf, and then I'll just do a bunch of these random leaves sort of coming off of it. And I did them pretty spaced far apart because I'm going to make it a bit bigger and do another layer because I just don't want them all to look exactly the same width. That's the downside of the iPad, is things can be a little bit too perfect. Now over here I'll do the leaf. Okay, now I want to increase the opacity of this. I'm seeing too much going on behind it, so I'll duplicate that, the leaves on top of each other, and then the top one, I can sort of raise and lower the opacity and control how much of the background scene we're seeing. The downside is it'll make this darker, but we can fix that in a minute. So I like this level of opacity, so I just merged those down. I'll go to my hue, saturation, and brightness. I'll raise up the brightness just a little bit there. Find maybe a better color for this. See, I'm watching this here because I want there to get some more contrast going on behind there. I'm going to do some random color variation. So I'll make a kind of a crazy selection. Feather it out quite a bit, and then we'll shift the color. Okay, that looks good. I want to make the centers of these leaves a bit darker. So I'll just make a selection that's roughly going over the stem, the middle of the bush, and the center of these leaves. And then I'll feather that. And we'll darken it, I think. Let's see. Actually, it looks better when I lighten it. Lighten it and desaturate it. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Just my scene back here, it's like I'm losing contrast with that palm leaf. So I'll see if I can do a little trick. So I've selected the background. I'm going to make a selection everywhere I'm losing contrast. I'll feather that selection and see if I can adjust the brightness to get a little bit more contrast. There we go. And I'll go back to my leaves here. And I'm trying to create a scene where the light is sort of coming out from the middle. So I'll just make a selection sort of covering the very edges of these leaves. And I'll feather it. And I want to give it a vignette. So hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'll just darken the edges like that. And then on the inside, I'll do the opposite. I'll lighten it. So I've created a selection that just gets sort of the inner part of those leaves. And I'll brighten that. And I want to create some shadows to differentiate these leaves. But I want to blend it first because I don't want to blend my shadows. Okay, I've got some nice blending going on there. So I'll grab my selection tool and just do a shadow here. And they can be hard edged. You don't have to feather the shadows. So also there will be a shadow like here. Whoops, kind of a shadow there. We'll add a shadow here. And when I darken that, it'll make that center one kind of pop out a little bit. Another shadow over here. This will help you really define the shape of these leaves. And the reason I'm going so far out here is because I'm thinking in like three-dimensionally. Like if these leaves are stacked, this one will cast a shadow like that, not just where they're touching. We'll darken that. Pretty cool. I'll clean up the tips of these. And then I'm going to add some veins, and then I'll sort of crop it. But while I have the eraser tool selected, I'll just erase the top of this palm leaf here. And this one as well, but I want it to be kind of rounded, not just like cut. Okay, I'll add some veins down the middle, so I'll make a new layer on top. Select a kind of a bluish color, a dark blue color. I'll set this layer on multiply because I want my lines to be super dark. And I'll grab the rough detail dotter brush. Pretty small size, but not too small because I don't have any other small details here. I want there to be similar level of detail in the whole painting. So let's do some quick lines down the middle. And I'm sort of pulsing the brush so it gets thicker and thinner. I don't want it to be too perfect. And these ones here are like a bush, so I'll do some kind of branches like that. It's a little bit harder to put the veins on this one. Maybe I'll add some detail over here, and I'll fade this layer a little bit. It's too harsh. Okay, that looks pretty good. And as a final touch, I'll add the sun. And it's a sunset, so I'll make it pretty red. And I'll choose the rough mop brush. And that's pretty much it. This is how I'd paint a kind of a jungle beach scene. Now, this is just my style. You can do anything with these brushes. I'm really inspired by Iraville. She's a German watercolor artist, and I love the kind of almost childish, toy-like plants and stuff. Especially this one here is really inspired by her work. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope this explains it all. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment on this video. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.